Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Terry, if everyone will rise, we can do the
Please
invocation.
rise. Bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you for this day, this wonderful day you've blessed us with. Thank you for these people in the audience as well as the volunteers up here serving. Lord, would you guide us and lead us in your will and way? In your name we ask.
Amen.
Thank you. Now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll call this meeting to order and make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second? All right, all in favor? Raise your hand. All right, all in favor? Okay, we'll open this up to public comments now.
And we do have one signed up. Mr. Reese, you can come on. You've got 3 minutes, or if you'll just tell us your name and where you're from.
Yes, ma'am. My name is James Curtis Reese, and I am the athletic director and head basketball coach at Royal Live Oak Charter School right here in Hardeeville, South Carolina. I've spent 15 years coaching in the state of South Carolina, most of them done right here in Jasper County at Hardeeville Ridgely Middle School. What I'm here today is just to talk about what we're trying to do inside of the community. I've got wind of some of the things that you guys are trying to do, and we're trying to build. We know that in every town, the way it grows is there's a church and there is a school. And now we have an actual high school right here in Hardeeville that we want to grow. We want to stretch out along 278 into the rest of Hardeeville, the outskirts of Hardeeville, and bring this community back together the way it has been when I first got here. It's kind of drifted off a little bit, but it all starts with the parks and recreation. We need the parks and recreation strong, and this is just speaking from an athletic standpoint. And we have a lot of great programs academically that we would love for people to come to our school this upcoming year and to see what we have going on so we can grow not only the school but the community of Hardeeville. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. We look forward to working with you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Presentations, public presentations, do we have any?
Do you want to do your public presentation now, or you want to wait till we're done?
It's up to you, at your will, whatever
Okay.
pleases the board or the commission.
All right. If you would like, you can go ahead and start yours if you'd like. We
Okay.
do have Wallace. I think I have him further down, but we'll go ahead and let him get in and out.
Okay. Well, good evening, commissioners and public. My name is Wallace Milling. I'm with Whitmer Jones Kiefer. We're landscape architects and land planners, and we are your consultants on the Richard Gray Recreation Complex out here behind us. And what we're going to do tonight is just give you guys a quick overview, bring you up to speed of where we are in the master planning process for Richard Gray. So we kicked off in, I believe, April, and we had our first kickoff meeting with this commission. I don't know that any of you guys were here outside of Ms. Combs.
Whole different group.
Yeah, and the interns are new, but they were at one of the stakeholder meetings. So this is all new to all of you, which is good. So it's good information for you to have. So we had that kickoff meeting, and our first big chunk of work is meeting with stakeholder groups, and those are folks who we've already kind of identified as folks with interest in the park and its development. And so we wanted to meet with those groups first and get their input on what might happen in the park. And so we have done that. The first stakeholder group that we met with, you're gonna have to help me, Jennifer, I don't have this in front of me, but the first stakeholder group that we met with were the MOUs. So those are the folks who have a memorandum of understandings with the city to use the park facilities. So folks like Tormento were there, the Barracudas were there, the Hurricanes were there,
YMCA, USCB.
USCB were there. JP2 didn't make it, but I think we got some really good feedback from those groups. Now, a couple of council members joined us for that one as well, the mayor and
Ms. Castle.
Ms. Castle. Okay, so that was one really good one. Then we had a partners stakeholder group meeting, and the partners were just at-large, they were just public partners, churches, the churches. So Eric Clark with Creative joined us for that one, as well as Mrs. From Agape.
Dr. Young.
Dr. Young from Agape joined us for that one. And then we had another meeting with elected officials, which were the remainder of council, and also the staff department heads joined us with that one. So Ansley joined us for that one. And so these brilliant young minds, as well as some of the other department heads. So what we have tonight to show you is more or less what we've shown each one of those stakeholder groups, except that, at every stakeholder meeting we've added or taken away from this presentation based on what we've heard. So I'm just going to go through this. So the first slide here that we're showing are some overarching principles that we are hearing that we want to integrate into the master plan of the Richard Gray Sport Recreation Complex. Safety and security is number one. Uniformity is number two. Community ownership and investment, number three. Connectivity, particularly the connectivity is within the complex itself, but also over to the new recreation facilities across John Smith, as well as to the surrounding community. So Royal Live Oaks is included in that. Local character and flavor, we don't want to lose sight of that. The local charm of Hardeeville needs to show in everything that we do in the park. Timelessness, which means basically, whatever we do it looks great today, but it looks great 30 years from now too. It's a timeless quality. We want to promote health and wellness, obviously, as a recreation complex, quality of life for the whole community, socialization, places where people can get together and get to know one another, community development and economic development, and we want to just bridge all the different parts of Hardeeville together in this place. So I just want to let you know now that when we get to the end of this, we're going to go back over these, and I'm going to kind of give this as quickly as I can, and then we're going to come back to these slides, and that'll be a great time for you guys to add to this or ask any questions about anything that I'm telling you. So the next slide, some of the potential improvements that would fall under those overarching principles that we've talked about with all of these groups. Additional parking. Improvements to existing parking and adding parking is a need. Additional vehicular access points. That was a question that was brought up in a couple of the stakeholder meetings. Are there other ways to get in and out of the park just to improve flow and circulation? Sidewalks, pedestrian connectivity from parking spaces to the various activities in the park and programs. Exercise trails, nature trails, boardwalks, a defined entrance and gateway to the park, so that folks, an arrival, so that folks know when they're coming into the park. Upgrades to existing infrastructure like the roadways, the drainage structures, the curb and gutter, the lighting, all those things are the existing infrastructure that we have currently. Cosmetic architectural upgrades to existing facilities and structures, and lighting could definitely be improved. Some others on the next page include. Oh yeah, well I like it when y'all are controlling. It's a pretty good deal. Y'all are hanging with me. This is perfect. So some other potential improvements are signage. Again, some kind of gateway signage, letting you know when you've arrived to the park, but also, kind of a brand or a cohesive acknowledgement that you're at the limits of the park, so that when you're within the park, all the signage feels and looks the same and has the same character, and can tell you where you're going, which field you're going to, so help you in your directions. But also interpretive signage, and we're going to show photographs of all these things. So interpretive signage that might showcase some of the natural characteristics of the environs of Hardeeville. New fencing is definitely something that could be improved. The cohesiveness of the landscape, which would need to be low maintenance, obviously. Some additional soccer fields potentially, or multi-purpose fields was actually another big item, so something that's very flexible. Fishing and kayak docks for the ponds that are out there, and maybe even some future ponds. Community group project opportunities, so maybe setting aside within every project, projects within projects that the community can get involved in and invest in, whether that be a sweat investment or whether it be donor items or things like that, or taking ownership of a certain section of the park. So those kinds of things. Some other things that I just remembered did not get in this were, and I think some of these came from folks in the audience, are maybe a communication wall, like a dedicated wall where you could draw things on and do art and things like that, as well as have information there. What were some of the other ones, guys? I know that there was 2 or 3 things that I got from y'all, and I don't know that I included them all in here, but there's a lot of good ideas. This is a map of the limits of work that we have that are included in this master plan. So let's see. Ooh, look at here. All right, so this is Main Street. This is where we are right here. I-95, 17, Royal Live Oaks, the new recreation center, John Smith Road. So this boundary basically is the boundary that we're working with. Okay, James Hatter Way is the road that comes straight through back to the complex. These are the existing fields. That's the existing football field. Okay? Right now there's plus or minus 246 spaces out there. We've identified kind of all the different pieces of the park, and there's information within the presentation for each one of those pieces of the park. Here's a blow up. Now, this map identifies 2 projects that are more or less already approved and underway. The dog park is one of them, and that's right here, about halfway down James Hatter Way. And this is the Juju Hudson playground area. Okay. Again, we can go back through any of this at the end. So these are just existing conditions pictures, and really what we've used these for in all of our stakeholder meetings is just to remind everybody what we're looking at, what's existing out here behind us. And it's just good to have documentation of the existing infrastructure, the existing components and elements out in the park. Oh, I'm sorry, the one thing that I forgot to say, that another project that's already underway is the covered basketball courts.
And dog park.
Yes, I mentioned the dog park, and there's some parking spaces right between the dog park, which is right here, and then the covered basketball. Okay? So here's some inspiration imagery that we've found along the way to help us visualize and dream about what other kind of improvements go into the park. So these slides are more focusing on pedestrian circulation and safety within the park. These slides are more about the athletic trails, the walkways, that connectivity element that can happen. Just again, one more thing to remind you all of as we look at this map. This right here, all this dark green over here, hopefully that you can see, these are wetlands. And we don't right now have the exact limits of those wetlands, and that's something that's been echoed at every one of these stakeholder meetings and will be echoed at the public input meeting. So we are limited by what we can do in these wet areas. We're in the low country, and we're at low elevations, so you really can't develop in those spaces. And once we figure out exactly where their limits are, we'll be able to determine how best to cut trails through them, more or less. But that is something that we can do, is build boardwalks and things like that through those wetlands. And so when you see pictures in the potential improvements section here of boardwalks, that's kind of the thought process behind that. So here's some pictures of some playground equipment. A splash pad is one of the potential improvements that has been discussed at length. And so it is definitely, well, we're seeking to confirm whether or not that is what the community wants. And if it is, then we will find a place to put it. Examples of dog park elements that could be in here. Now here's an example of some community involvement with like a community garden. Obviously the festivals and events that go on, the community events that go on out in the park are important, and we want to plan for those and make sure that they're accommodated. And if there's any way that we can improve that experience, then we're going to seek to do that. So things like having electricity in the right places, which I think is really pretty good out there right now, but just to make sure that we continue to do that, we want to make sure that we have kind of a plan for where people might do pop-up food trucks or things like that. We want to have a plan for where certain types of farmers market events or vendor events could take place. And if there's any small live music or performances, that there's a place for that, as well as the powwows and the other events that already take place here. Some imagery of signage. So here's that interpretive signage that we were talking about, and informational signage, gateway signage, trail signage. We hope to be able to incorporate some of Hardeeville's local flavor and character and history. So we've incorporated a picture of the number 7 Argent lumber train, as well as you notice this picture down here is a picture of a recognition plaque for a community project that took place. So being able to recognize those who have invested, whether it be through a donor brick or a plaque like this that, has sponsors listed on it. And then just, kind of having a higher quality of elements incorporated into the improvements that we do. So you see a lot of different types of fences and shade and walkways and lights and fencing and things like that. Docks and volleyball courts, pickleball courts, covered basketball. This is the actual design for the pavilion at Juju. Okay, so that's where we are in the process so far. These slides represent what we've heard so far, for the most part. And so now let me just tell you where we're going, and then I can open it up for discussion, and y'all can ask questions or add whatever you'd like, or give us your feedback. So where we're going next is, I believe, June 21st is our public, just open to the community at large, public input meeting, community input meeting. So we're gonna announce this week where that'll be and the exact time. I think it'll be at probably during this hour, the 5:30 to 7:30 time period. And that's just gonna be everybody from the community coming in. We're gonna give this presentation, and we're gonna break out into groups if the group is large enough, and we hope it is. And we're gonna get input and feedback, and maybe draw some of the stuff that we hear on some plans, and then hang them up and talk about them, and come up with a good executive summary of everything that we've heard throughout the stakeholder meetings and that community input meeting, and put forward a preliminary master plan that you guys will see, and then that you will give us feedback on, and then that you will present to council. Does that sound correct?
Yes,
Jim?
that's absolutely right.
Okay, so now's a great time for you guys, since this is the first time some of you might have heard some of these things. We'd love to get your input, get your feedback, and you could do that now, or you could do it later. I don't know what you all have time for tonight, but we're here to, we're serving at your will. So I can expand on any of that, or answer any questions.
I do.
Yes, sir.
And just reiterate what you just said. Covered basketball courts, dog park, and moving of the playground are all done deals. We'll call them done deals.
They're in the plan already.
All right, and those are the three items that are already done. There's nothing else done.
That's correct.
Okay. The one thing that's always kind of bothered me about that area down there is, number one, you got a football field that when there's games going on there, the parking lots are full. You've got a playground in proximity to it, and you've got basketball courts across the street. It's a tad bit congested. So is it reasonable to say that that park maybe needs to be slipped somewhere else, maybe around to the other side of the basketball courts where the large dirt pile was from the football field? And the other thing I did not see on there is the intro to the park. You talked about a said entrance. Is
Yes.
that not been designated, land not found? What's going on with that?
Well, what we've talked about in some of the other meetings is, currently this is your default
Correct.
quote-unquote entrance. So the question that has been brought up at other meetings is there a way to enhance that and to really give it solely to the park? and maybe figure out another way to enter into City Hall.
Okay.
So right now, that City Hall's kind of secondary parking lot, or maybe it's primary, I don't know
Primary.
what it's considered. But right now, there's parking on both sides of
Okay.
City Hall, and you've got this green space behind City Hall.
So we're not talking about an access from John Smith. We're talking about trying to define James Hatter Way as a direct access point.
I think from what we've heard so far, that would be, and based on what we know about just the wetlands,
Right.
as well as what we've heard from DOT about access off of John Smith Road, that would be the path of least resistance. This would be the path of least resistance, off of Main Street, which is called Main Street for a reason. So it's the center of town.
Correct.
So,
And for
Yes.
someone like myself, I come from Okatee, so coming through John Smith Road and turning off would save me a lot of twists and
Sure.
turns.
sure.
But people coming here are not coming from my area most of the time. They are traveling 95 or 17, so it does make sense. What are we doing with all this property right here, Jim? Does anybody know?
Behind City Hall. I'm not sure if that's an omen. I shouldn't even say anything about that.
That's a part of the plan. We're asking that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Because that-
we ask you that question. What
That
should
would
be
make
done?
sense to move the parking lot to this side. and-
It's been discussed, I think it was at our department heads, and I think the rest of council was there, and that was discussed at that time about moving the entrance of City Hall, which is the main gate. People are coming in and out, two-way access to the park, and how can we move that access to City Hall to the other side, or even have some additional parking back here. Right now, our only designated event space is the green area behind here. And when we have a big city festival, everyone will see, how difficult it can be to do, some of these festivals. And I think the Catfish Festival did it down there, and they've moved all around, so it's been talked about. But that's the whole idea of the master plan, is to get all of, it's a months-long process of getting the feedback from all of us, from the public, from the stakeholders, and then basically Wallace and his group, come up with what everybody discusses, and then we have a plan that we can live with, and we can actually attain certain things, and then from there, we take it to council, and they say yes or no, or
Because the one thing
start all over.
I did see in the pictures that makes a lot of sense to me is the stage area. With events going on,
Yeah.
having that pre-wired
Mhm.
where it can handle, you start plugging in guitars and amps and mixing boards, and you start burning a lot of juice.
Yes.
And it's very, very easy to
You
throw.
would need a dedicated circuit for such.
At minimum, several. That's a lot of equipment. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the picture that we've got in here, is that the only parking that we currently have?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you have any of these events, where do people park?
They park up and down Main Street. Right now, they're parking in the area where the dog park is at, or where it's designated to go. And then they also park with the church, which is right on Randall. And I think one of the big things that we had discussed in one of our meetings, was quantifying the fact that this is a community park, not a huge, large-scale tourism park. If you come down during the fall, we have football, we have soccer, Tormenta. It is slam-packed full, and people are parking all over the place. It's something that we have to discuss, and I think parking is something that we've addressed a couple of times. Right now, I think in one of our old plans, where the dirt pile is, that's where some additional parking was gonna go. But it's not been decided one way or the other if parking will be where the parks are or back and forth. That's what this whole plan is designed to try and figure out what we can do with the limitations that we've got. Because another thing too that we've discussed is, this park can only expand so much. So, we wanted to be able to show a plan that can show what we can do with what we have, but at the same time, also in the back of our heads, start thinking about how we're gonna expand, into the community, whether it's building splash pads in other communities or, you know, pocket parks or anything like that, because you try and put too much into this area, and next thing you know, it's slammed full. It's just, it's miserable. You know, if everything at that park is going on at one time, if you've got baseball, soccer, football, special event, it's a nightmare. And then you have kids running around and, you know, traffic going to and fro and pulling in the wrong way to park, and, yeah, so it has been addressed. And I think Wallace has probably got a pretty good handle on it.
Can you go back to the slide that has
Yeah.
the school as well as this property,
Yes,
as
sir.
well as the rec center?
Yes.
There you go.
And connectivity too is a really big thing too. I know Victoria and Terry, you're both kind of coming on while we're in the middle of this. But one of our primary goals is that connectivity piece. Royal Live Oaks is also going to be, you know, a continuing partner, especially with the athletic fields. We want to be able to give them some access, whether it's during, you know, school hours or something. So trying to figure out how we're going to get folks from point A of Richard Gray Complex to Royal Live Oaks and over to the rec center. Traffic-wise, we've talked about it. Like Wallace said, it is the least path of resistance, and I don't know that we can put a road through there. Maybe in 20 years, I'm not sure, but it's something
Yeah.
that, you know, we'll discuss. It's just, we are working on trying to get some kind of a report on those wetlands, hopefully in the next couple of months. They are talking about getting it done, so
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that bullet point on improvements and talking about access from other parts of the property, that other means outside of just James Hatter Way. So we are exploring that and maybe pinpointing potentials for the future to study. So
Is there any more property over there at the rec center?
No. We're getting not quite 5-6 acres, I think. I think it's like 5.4 or 5, but there's no area to expand back there. We do have about 80 acres over in East Argent area, so that's, you know, a growing area. So that's, you know, areas that we'll look to put some stuff, whether it's facilities for parks or if it's just gonna be, you know, stuff for events, you know, wide open space. And, you know, when you do events and stuff like that, which right now, that's pretty much all we're doing is events, with just the staff that we have. But it would be nice to have an open area where we could have, you know, concerts and food trucks and all that kind of stuff, and so.
Is there anything out on 17 near where Waste Management's building out there?
I think that is designated as commercial. That is where, I think the previous director had a really great idea with the
There's a
soccer complex.
multi-complex
Yeah, but it
going on
was zoned commercial, so we couldn't use it, so.
Where on that map is the events take place or where the stage is supposed to be?
It depends for every event that we do, but we utilize this space when we do our events. And we literally use, but yeah, like I said, we do use this map, and then this is how we map everything out. So we have the big, huge festival that's coming up. So, you know, we have to put the stage in a certain space where there's enough electrical, thinking about safety, security of the public at large, where we can have water for food vendors, and, you know, where we can put staging at for all the other events and vendors and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's not a very ideal place to host a special event, but we do the best that we can.
But we're looking to make it ideal.
That's right. That's what this whole thing is for. That's right.
So there are spaces that can be utilized. I mean, that's what we're working on. I mean,
Yeah.
there are places where we can put these things. It's just a matter of the size of these events and things like that have to be considered and thought through and programmed accordingly. understanding that there are other places in town where something that wouldn't particularly fit in this place might have to go. I mean, we just have to, really what we've heard from stakeholders is that this really wants to be ultimately a community park. So this isn't a soccer complex, it's not a baseball complex, it's not a performance area. It's a little bit of all those things, but it's a little bit of all those things is what we've heard really, is that it's a place where everybody can come together, enjoy some of all those things, but that there might be other places in the city that might focus more on any one of those things, if that makes sense.
Is that gonna be part of the plan, or is that in phase 2?
This plan is for Richard Gray. It's for this property line that we're showing right here. So we're, while we might make recommendations about studying properties that are adjacent to this, and we might make recommendations about, hey, it would be great if we could connect through here from Royal Live Oaks, or that we could connect, from Epps Avenue or something like that. But right now, we're dedicating the most of our resources for a master planning standpoint inside of that boundary. If that makes sense to everybody, we're trying to make some proposals that are attainable. I mean, within the near term.
Yeah, pretty much the wetlands are total.
Wetlands are a significant barrier to vehicular traffic. There are ways to work within the wetlands on a pedestrian scale. And we can really take advantage, the natural characteristics of those wetlands and celebrate them and create a connection to Royal Live Oaks and to the rec center. So it's not all bad, but they are a barrier to vehicular traffic and any fill that would be required to do, construction out there.
Is that where you're talking about the ponds would be, that you want these kayaks to be going in?
Well, yes, ma'am. Typically, next to wetlands is a very low area, and so sometimes it makes sense to do drainage up against wetlands, and so that's, these ponds are made to drain these sports fields, and I think they were hoping when they dug those ponds that they could use that dirt for fill for the sports fields, and so if we did end up utilizing, let's say, this space over here for something, maybe we were able to get a multi-purpose field or another soccer field over there, something like that, and then you might try, depending on what the soils end up being in some of these areas, you might try to dig another hole over here, and you would probably want to do that closer to the wetlands without impacting them, and use that dirt over here to build that fill, and if you did that, then you might have some more ponds. But the existing ponds that we have are definitely functional for fishing. We already have a fishing rodeo that happens at least once a year. And they just need some enhancement on the edges to make them a little bit more user-friendly. There's not a lot of shade out there, unfortunately. The landscaping is kind of more presentable, more functional too. I mean, it's tough for a kid to go out there and fish in the middle of July and just fry, and get scalded by the sun. So some trees that have some irrigation that can grow and provide some shade, maybe some shelters, maybe a little deck that they could, utilize to access the water. And yeah, I think kayaks and canoes are a possibility. Any other questions? There's a lot of potential here. We're really excited about it. Again, we're looking for attainable goals. I don't think we've put a time frame on it yet, but we've heard from the get-go that this does not want to be a master plan that goes on the shelf. This wants to be a master plan that has attainable goals in it that we can take, just like the dog park, just like Juju Hudson, and propose the next project that's coming, and try to get it all scheduled in such a way and funded in such a way that it is the highest quality. That we're not just knee-jerk reacting to whimsical desires at the moment, but that we're thinking through a long-term process and implementing strategically.
There's a card for you when you get done.
Okay,
I
great.
think you'll be, when you read it, I think you'll feel a little excited about what it is,
Okay, great.
because I can help.
Awesome, awesome. That's wonderful. Anything else? Okay, well, we look forward to hopefully seeing you all at the public workshop, the community input event.
What was that date again on that?
It's the 21st.
June?
Yes, sir, which is just a couple of weeks away. So we're gonna nail down that location and that time and send out invitations, and we're gonna post it on social media and through all of the towns, the city's information network channels. And so stay tuned for that, and we look forward to seeing you all there and working with you on this great project. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Get this thing. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay. Jen, do you have any old business that we need to discuss?
There is no old business to discuss, ma'am.
Okay, I guess we move on to the next section.
Yes. Approval of the minutes.
Presentation and approval of the minutes for May 23rd meeting. Any discussion for those minutes? No? All right. New business? Any new business to
Hold on,
discuss?
you gotta go back.
Oh.
We gotta get a motion for
Oh,
approval.
sorry.
That's okay.
Motion for approval?
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. All right, that was approved. Can now go to the next section.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Any new business to discuss?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, first, obviously, we have some new faces on here. Victoria and Terry were both, let's see, was it Thursday? Thursday of last week, I believe. Council approved their appointments to our commission, so we want to thank both of you there. I don't know if you have any words to say, Victoria, to public out there, that anyone that's watching? You're good? Terry, anything?
Again, it's an honor to be up here. I've sat out there in the audience on many occasions in different places, never sat in the big chair. It actually feels pretty good. But no, we're looking forward to bringing Hardeeville to a status that is needed over here. Things have definitely turned over here for the last 5 or 10 years for sure. And keeping it going in the same direction, I think is a great thing. And I think this is a great start for it. It all starts with the young ones. It starts with them.
Thank you. We are very pleased that both of you have joined. We also have, for anyone that's out there in TV land watching, we had a few others that mailed in applications, so if we should have an opening, we keep those on file. And we always appreciate and want to thank the public for engaging. Next is our welcome and introductions of our summer interns. We have 3 lovely interns that are sitting in our audience. We've got one coming from Georgia Southern, one coming from LSU, and one coming from NC State University. And I'm gonna allow them to come up to the podium and give you a quick, brief introduction of themselves. and what all their dreams are for Parks and Recreation. They have been here, what, almost a month, you think, just about?
A little less than a month.
Yeah, I mean, 3 weeks. Feels like 2 or 3 months. Feels like they're on full time. They have been running nonstop, and they are quite a blessing to us. For those of you that, we are a two-person team, so it's always nice to get interns, and they've done a phenomenal job. So I'll shut up. Go ahead, Sean.
Good evening. My name's Sean Monday. I am the intern from LSU. I come by way of New York originally. That's where I grew up. A little bit about my background is that my major is sports administration. It's not directly Parks and Rec per se, but I can bring a new view, a different look on things, looking at it from a different point of view. A little bit about my background again is I did 8 years in the Marine Corps previous to this. That helps me bring the dedication and dependability and the focus on detail that is needed for such a new Parks and Rec department. If there's anything else you'd like for me to say? Any questions?
Thank you,
All right,
Sean.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Cole Chambliss. I am from Noonan, Georgia, which is just south of Atlanta. I just graduated from Georgia Southern with a recreation degree, and I have an emphasis in outdoor recreation, so my future plans, I'm looking to get to something like National Park Service, State Park, Department of Interior in general, things like that. So, yeah, it's me.
Thank
The
you, Cole.
big city of Noonan.
Yes. You know Noonan?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Relatives,
Okay.
Webbs.
Hi, I'm Shelby Taylor. I'm from Sneads Ferry, North Carolina. No one knows where that is, but I go to NC State University. I'm about to graduate after this internship, which is very exciting. And my major is Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management with a concentration in program management. My future goals would be to work in a municipal government Parks and Rec department. This one.
Thank you.
They're all for hire.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, Ruth.
Okay, the next item of new business is our policy on donations, sponsorships, naming rights of city properties. You all got this homework way in advance, and there was one small change. I wanted to make sure that each of you got this so you could really look through it, see it's a pretty well put together policy. Our council has tasked us with making sure there is a policy in place, as I think sometimes folks get, the waters get muddied if somebody wants to be a sponsor and then they want us to scratch their back, what have you. This policy comes into play for not only Parks and Rec, but for the city in whole, that really just safeguards the city when we do go after donations or sponsors, and also for the naming rights. As all of you know, we have the new rec center. We'll be breaking ground here very soon on it. I think the official breaking ground ceremony is going to be October 15th, I think, but we will, of course, be breaking ground before then. But so, with that comes, a lot of detail with exactly how the city wants to move forward with any donations that we seek. And this isn't something new. I think when it was first tasked to me, I was a little put off. Wait a minute, what do you mean? This is something that all Parks and Recreation folks do. I've been in this business for almost 30 years. Whether you're public, private, nonprofit, 501c3, or a municipality, all of these entities are constantly going after sponsorships, especially, within your community. You want to work together, whether it's local businesses or corporate sponsors. When you have large-scale events, Parks and Recreation, when it comes to budget, usually is at the very bottom, and we're used to that. So we have to look outside of, how we can find funds. Why not bankrupting everything when we need to build splash pads and all these new amenities? So I let council know that I would put something together, and these do have to be approved by you before we take it to council. That way it carries a lot more weight, knowing that you all have taken the time to really read through it. And I'm sorry, it is a very lengthy policy, but it goes into all of the definitions. It goes into anything and everything that you can possibly think of. The only thing that I did leave off in here was a more like a schedule of fees. Sometimes some policies will have a schedule of fee attached to it. I think that's something that council will probably want to work through. If we have a naming rights, and usually it's about 10% of whatever the cost billed is, so ours is right about 8.5, so you know, it means someone has to give a very a very sizable sum of money in order to attain that naming sponsor for the facility. And there's lots of different ways. I mean, they're all outlined in this, so without me chattering on more and more and more, does anyone have any questions about it, or anyone wanted to add anything? Like I said, I try to give it to you guys as quickly as possible so you guys could really get through the thickets of it and make sure that this is a good policy that we stand behind, because I will be taking it to council on the 20th if it is approved here today. So I'll open it up to any questions, comments, concerns.
So when you go into the types of sponsorship programs, so we're not saying that we're not going to take money from people, we just don't expect them to expect anything for the fact that we're taking their money.
Yes, yes, and that's what this is outlined here. I think, you know, sometimes you can get into the whole, like I said, the whole thickets of whether a council goes after asking for money, or a commission, or, you know, like us, representatives of the city, and people get a little leery on it. Again, this is something that is done not only locally in our area, it's also done statewide and nationally. So, you know, this, I mean, geez, this is how programs are built on partnership and sponsorships. But we just want to make sure that we have something that's in place that protects us, and it also protects the city. So that is exactly why we have everything, very specific guiding principles are in here. So, you know, but at the same time, we want to make sure that if somebody is wanting to offer a sponsorship, I don't know, Wallace and his group wants to give us $2 million in exchange for something, that is not what we're doing. That's why we have this policy in place that outlines that we can't. And sometimes, I think even here, I think it's on like the last page, there might be times where we actually have to turn away sponsorships or donations because someone is seeking something in return. We're not lobbyists at all. We're just here trying to engage our community, you know, and some of our corporate sponsors to, you know, give back to the community, whether it's a, you know, a big project. I know Bluffton just did the dog park. And, you know, here in Hardeeville, it's, you know, kind of getting hard to do it. We have some money that we put aside to it, but trying to get that community together to, you know, kind of stand behind it is getting a little difficult. So that's why we have all this. And like I said, it's probably a little bit more detailed than it needs to be, but.
So we would advertise at some point saying that these are different sponsorships that are available?
Yes, yes. And we do, like right now, we do some of that already. I think that, like I said, the council just wants to have a policy that's in place. Whether we have athletics, you know, someone might want to sponsor a team, or if we have events, fishing rodeo, we just had several sponsors that came out and helped us with that. So we were able to not use all of our budget and apply that elsewhere, which, you know, helps out when something crazy happens in Parks and Rec, and I don't know, your refrigerators go down, and now you got to figure out, where are we going to get the money for refrigerators? So, but yeah, I hope that answers your question.
The worst problem is, where am I gonna put my stuff at?
All right. Does anyone have any other comments, questions, concerns? I mean, like I said, I know it's very detailed, but I would prefer for it to be over detailed. And we take away than not have enough in there.
I can't find anything wrong with it.
Yeah, I think it's well detailed and kind of covers all of our bases.
Okay. Alrighty.
I think this anyway.
Okay. With this, and it's not on the little sheet that we have, Ainsley, but we do need to have a motion to approve it.
Okay.
In a second.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, all day.
All right, that is awesome. Okay, and again, we will take this information to council. It'll be at the next meeting on the 20th. And then they will make their recommendations. They might have some changes or suggestions. And if they have anything, we will put that back out to you all. Let's see, time change for the meeting. Not the last meeting, but the meeting before, we did have a request to have our time to be changed for this meeting. So I am completely open. My schedule is kind of up to y'all. It was mentioned that someone wanted to go from 5:30 to 5 o'clock. So it's up to you all as the commission, and if that's the time that you want to meet, we can do that. So I'll open that up for anybody that might have any questions, comments. I know it's the earlier we meet, the easier it is for most of us in our schedules, but
That's really not what this is about, though, is it? What's easiest for us?
well, it's not what's easy for me.
There
I'm here all the
There were
time.
3 people that came in here well after 5:30.
Yeah.
So I would personally say leave it where it's at.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
5:30 is
All right.
fine. 5:30 is fine as well.
Okay. All right. So everyone wants to keep it as it is. We can always bring this up at a different time as well. Maybe when we have everyone here, but like I said, 5:30 is fine by me as well. Like I said, I am at your will. Okay, so we'll keep it as it is, and then if it comes up again, we'll bring it back up. Okay. Master plan, we can take that off. I went, Wallace already did that. And then the last new business is we do have the 4th off Main fireworks celebration. We are hitting that hard and heavy. Our DMO, Miss Kendall, is working on that in partnership with some of our radio stations. We've sent information out. We've seen a lot of our partners are already sharing that information. We hope that everyone out there in TV land and all of you will be there in attendance. We've got a lot of free giveaways that we're going to be handing out. We've got Muddy Creek is going to be out there. And of course, the fireworks are free. We're starting at about 7 o'clock. And it should be over 9:30, 9:45. And there will absolutely be no rain. We forbid the rain. But we are excited about it. We did not get to do it last year, so that was one of the things that a lot of folks had hit me up as soon as I got here. Been here for almost a year next Tuesday. Woohoo! But everyone wanted us to bring back fireworks, so we are doing that. And our interns, they are heavily working on it, getting some food trucks and folks out there, and we've got some interactive games for the kids to play, so it's family oriented. Everyone can come out and have a good time. So we hope to see all of you guys here.
I can tell you, I personally missed it last year. I was raised military, and I've seen a lot of fireworks shows. When we came over here 5 years ago for fireworks, you know, I expected a couple firecrackers and a couple bottle rockets. It was actually a very good show. It is well worth the drive to come see. I was quite amazed.
Okay.
All right, Jen, do we have the director's report?
Yes, ma'am. All of you got your PRT happenings for June. You'll see a little bit of a new design coming out in, is it July? Yeah, July. We have put up this task to our interns to just give it a new flavor, new flip. You know, sometimes I don't always have the time to have to do all of this, so that was something that we put up to them, and they did an awesome job. So just want to give you a quick update. The basketball courts, they are getting an upgrade. We are still in the process of getting site reviews and all the permitting and all that stuff done for that. So we hope to have that, I believe, right around the end of July, early August, when we'll start that. So that's very exciting. Especially for the folks that are going to be down there playing. For anyone that doesn't know, if you go down that, well, not right now, it's pouring down rain outside, but it is constantly packed, and so we're excited about that. We are also looking for quotes or general contractors that might be interested in doing our dog park. This I touched a little bit on it. We don't have a problem getting quotes from anybody, but we still have to have a general contractor that's willing to take this project on. And we do know it's not a huge project, and a lot of the projects in our area right now are just massive. So a lot of folks don't want to deal with a small project, but teeny tiny Hardeeville, anyone out there listening, if you're interested, please contact us. Wallace touched on the master plan, so that's still going in full force. We're very excited about what the end result is going to be and all of the changes coming to the park. It's a lot. It's very exciting, especially for the community. We do have in July, we've got The Incredibles 2. If y'all remember back in April, it got rained out. So we are going to put that out July 19th, I believe. So that's pretty exciting. And then after that, I think we have another one in August, How to Train Your Dragon. So that'll be fun. Tormenta FC is we're really ramping up their community efforts. We have partnered with them and asked them to make sure they incorporate, Hardeeville in a lot of what they do. So they are working on some skills Mondays and also doing free Fridays. So anyone in the community that wants to kind of come out and check out Tormenta, it's pretty cool. You get a lot of skill sets from this group, and these guys are top-notch professional. For anyone that doesn't know Tormenta, they are everywhere, just blowing up like crazy. Let's see, July is Parks and Recreation Month. That is hosted by the NRPA, which is our National Recreation and Park Association. We have some programs that we're going to be doing. We'll get the information out to the public. The theme this year is Game On, so we hope that everyone will engage with us on that. And our interns will also be taking over some of our social media sites to engage the public, so that'll be fun as well. But other than that, that's all I have, madam.
And how long do you have the interns?
Till August.
I think in 3 months.
August.
Yeah.
So does this, PRT Happiness, this goes out on the website?
Yes, ma'am. It goes out every month. Yep. I think we started back in March, I think. So it goes out on our website. We have a mailer that we send to our partners. We ask our partners to get the information out. We send it out to Sun City. Anybody and everybody that wants it, we want to send it out.
Can I give you another address, a name to send it to? And help
Yes,
you?
absolutely. Yes. And that way you can get it out to the homeowners there and all that kind of stuff. Yes, can definitely do that. Okay.
All right. Any Recreation Commission issues or concerns for anyone? No? All right, I motion to adjourn. No?
You can. You have to ask someone else too.
All right, well, I don't know.
Can I get a motion?
Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
Okay. And then a second.
Can I get a second?
I'll second. Okay.
All right,
And then,
adjourn at 6:34.
yep. And the next meeting?
The next meeting is July 8th at 5:30 at City Hall, Council Chambers.
Thank you.
I really hope I don't have to do it next week.